This call is being recorded.
Well, welcome to the call tonight. This is a court of record call, and it's Thursday evening, the 19th of January. This is our second call, and tonight we talked about going over specifically the counterclaim that we've been using from afreecountry.com. It is the document that we are starting with to open up a court of record. And somebody was asking me this week, what would you do if you didn't have a counterclaim to put into place? In other words, maybe you don't have anything in the court system, so you don't have anything to counterclaim, but you wanted to go forward with a situation that you wanted to bring forward. And I told them that I would still use the counterclaim, but of course you would name it just a claim, and you wouldn't be naming it a counterclaim at that point if you're just putting in a claim. So at this point, I basically told them that we would go ahead and we could use the same document as far as maybe the outline. Now I realize that those of you that have gotten the copy of the counterclaim to look over this week that I told everybody we would look at, I realize basically some of you would look at and say, well, this doesn't pertain to anything I'm doing because it is the counterclaim is basically written and geared towards people with foreclosures. But you could still use the basic outline of it, and you can definitely use the laws that we put into there that should rule your case, whatever that may be. So there's always that situation whereby we can go ahead and we can use the same counterclaim. I hope everybody got a chance to look over the counterclaim. I don't know that everybody went and got a copy of it, but it would be helpful tonight if you did, and if you've already looked at it. And if somebody's got questions on it, we could open up with a few questions and then I can go over parts of it. So those of you that have looked at it, was there any particular kind of question you are going to ask regarding a counterclaim?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Okay, we have two people. We have a lady and a gentleman. We'll go ladies first. So ma'am, you may go first.
Hi, I'm new to this, and I was just wondering where we could find the counterclaim at.
The counterclaim can be found at afreecountry.com, and you would go and go to afreecountry.com. You would become a member, and then you would want to look up under their section for the member forums, and you go under the forum that has to do with foreclosures. Then you can look for a Fathom 21, I believe it is. But in lieu of all that, and that's the long way to get at it, if you email me, I can email you a copy of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my email, and I forgot to announce tonight that I'm Justice Micky, and I have currently got a counterclaim in, and that's why Justice Doucette asked me to speak on this call. So I'm going to give my email real quick for those of you that do not have it. It's the word gentle, the word secret, and the last word is sis. S as in Sam, I as in indigo, S as in Sam. And so you may get a hold of me, and that's at gmail.com. So it's gentle, secret, sis at gmail.com.
Well, I thank you very much, Justice Micky. And
You're very welcome. And your name is?
Pam Ayers in Florida.
Pam, Florida. All right. Thank you, Pam, for calling in, and I hope that we can help you out.
Well,
there was a gentleman that asked a question, and you may go ahead with your question.
Okay, I'm just curious. Can you hear me? Just want to make sure.
I can.
Okay, cool. if you go through the document, the counterclaim, some words are highlighted in red. Does that mean it was dumped in by somebody as like they were editing it or reviewing it, or is that just for emphasis? I'm just curious.
I believe that from what I know, it was simply because they were going to have somebody else look it over.
So maybe these are like editing marks or something.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Second question, if I can.
You may.
There are 7 causes of action. First cause of action, second cause of action, so on. How do they, they're all kind of the same. I mean, I couldn't see any like sections or divisions of information. How do they come up with the different causes of action? They list 2 on the beginning opening page, but then it goes into, there's 7 of them as you go through the document. I'm just curious how they make that determination, what separates the cause, and can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Each one of those causes of action are actually a different trespass.
Okay.
So you'll have, under each cause of action, you'll have certain so many. It's just that they kept the numbers going through all the causes all together, but basically it's for each trespass. If that helps out a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's just 1 trespass, then 6 trespasses on the case. And I just was trying to find some distinction to separate the second cause of action from the third cause of action, but I couldn't really see anything that was like really, really separating the 2. But I'm glad, hey, the more causes of action, when it gets to the end and it's putting in his request for, compensation, or not compensation, but I'm trying to get to the request for relief.
Right.
And, each one of those causes of action has a value, and it's significant.
Right. And so basically that's what it is. Each cause of action is basically a trespass. And there are various kinds of trespass.
Okay.
So that's what would separate all the sections. But that's a good question. I'm glad you asked them. I'm sure other people were wondering the same thing.
Yeah. And I guess basically what we're going to have to do, this is a great template to start with, and then if you have a certain issue, whatever that issue might be, whether you're going after some city or a policeman or whatever. Actually, they're really not policemen; they're policy men. Anyway, if you put that in, you could modify it, and you'd have different interests. Obviously, this is based on a foreclosure, like you said, but each case or claim would have different characteristics and different. Is there like more of them on afreecountry.com? So if you had a certain issue, let's just take example the traffic ticket. If you had a traffic ticket issue you wanted to deal with and go into a court of record to resolve it, is there a template there to kind of start with, kind of give you an idea?
I haven't looked, but I know he's got a lot of traffic stuff on there that you could use for a traffic case.
Cool. Yeah.
So in other words, he's got case law and some things like that you can use on that case.
And then this is going to be our forum for the most part, or at least for the short term, at least, to where we can bring up issues like, I don't particularly have an issue just now. I just want to get familiar with this, so in case, and it's really only a matter of time until I have an issue, I'm sure. To be prepared, sort of, to be a little preventative maintenance in order to make sure that I'm covered when the time comes.
Oh, there you go. Yep, and that's a good idea. And boy, you're blessed you don't have any situations.
Keep my head down. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've kept my head down for a number of years because all my action were 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and the time, the technology, this just wasn't known. Or at least I didn't know anybody who knew this stuff. So, I mean, the other thing I'd love to hear about, and I'm not sure you can bring it up here, is this case that this Tadlock guy is involved with, he and his wife. I've heard it discussed a little bit on some of the calls, but I'm just wondering what the current status is on the case. Has he had any luck at getting, I think he's still in his house, I wonder, and any luck at getting any kind of a restitution from Wells Fargo?
No, there's no restitution so far for Wells Fargo yet that I'm aware of. But what they are doing is they are currently working on the notice of felonies, which will go in on this case. And if I'm not mistaken, they have done paperwork that you can see there. They've done paperwork whereby they are technically going to foreclose on Wells Fargo for doing some of the things that they did.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. I guess we'll just have to wait. This whole. Do you have any idea how long Michael has been actually doing this? Using this common law procedure, court of record procedure?
Well, I know he's worked on his own stuff for quite a while, and most of what he did came from what's his name? Bill Thornton. He did
Yes. Oh, the old
he
guy
used to
at
do stuff.
1215.org?
Right.
Yeah, I can't think of his name either.
But he never up until starting to do the counterclaim the way it is now, basically before that they would try to do what Bill Thornton and some of those common law great people did, which is to declare common law while you're in a case. Basically what this does is it takes it out of that venue and gives you the upper hand because you're not fighting from a defendant standard.
Right.
You're not coming in as the claimant or counterclaimant, as the case may be.
Yeah.
Good questions, though. Just so some of you know, I have muted a couple of you just because of the background noise. If you need to ask a question, you can just do ***, and that will unmute you. But just so you guys know, I do mute the board when there's crackling in the background or something whereby we can't hear other people speak. So it's better if you guys mute your own phone and then unmute as you need to ask questions. But if you don't, and if it's noisy on the board, then I will just, singly mute you. And then if you need to ask a question, you can just hit ***. Okay, good questions. Does anybody else have questions since they've now looked at the counterclaim? Are there questions in specific that you have about it? Okay, in looking over the counterclaim, I just want to make sure as people go through this that you have a little bit of an idea of how that goes. But I'm gonna pull up the counterclaim that I'm actually working on. We have one in for our son, and I'm helping him with that. And actually, what we're doing at this point in time is we're trying to do an amended on him. The only reason they were able to take his house when they took it a couple weeks ago was because we had not had a chance to actually put this, give all the defendants their copy and get it served on them. So that's why we did not have it done. And that's why they were so able to come in so easily and just come in and do what they wanted. So I'm actually working on an amended counterclaim, and that means I've added new trespasses and I've added defendant. So that's kind of currently where I'm at. One of the things that I did on my particular paperwork that I did was I actually put at the beginning of it a what do you call it? The first part of it, I basically was just putting what a trespass really is. I wanted to have that up so that people could, so that we could see what is a trespass, and basically, hold on here. I thought I had it pulled up here, but I'm going to look again and grab that real quick here. I had the other one open up. I just didn't have one of mine opened up. And that's one thing too. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to go ahead and to do your own thing with these documents. They are to be yours, so you do them any way that you want to do them. And basically for us, what I did is I gave different definitions of the cause, which to me is the trespass. And what it says is this, and this I got from Black's. I believe it's the very first one. Any misfeasance or act of one man whereby another is injuriously treated or damnified. An injury or misfeasance to the person, property, or rights of another person done with force and violence, either actual or implied in law. In the strictest sense, an entry on another's ground without a lawful authority and doing some damage, however inconsiderable to this real property. Trespass in its most comprehensive sense signifies any transgression on or offense against the law of nature, of society, or of the country in which we live, and this whether it relates to a man's person or to his property. In its more limited and ordinary sense, it signifies an injury committed with violence, and this violence may be either actual or implied, and the law will imply violence though none is actually used. When the injury is of a direct and immediate kind and committed on the person or tangible or corporeal property of the plaintiff. Of actual violence, and assault and battery is an instance of implied, peaceable but wrongful entry upon a person's land. So that was actually what I put into my case. Well, actually, I should say our son's case and what I helped him with. So in the causes of action, the first thing we talk about is the parties. That's usually what comes in on number one. Let's see. Actually, in the beginning part, we actually open up by stating that this is a court of record and that we claim each of the following. So it would say comes now, and whoever's the person is that this is for, a people of whatever state. And so say if you're a people of Minnesota, you would be a Minnesotan. And in this instance, abiding on the land known as Wisconsin, because that's where our son is at. Hereinafter counterclaimant in this court of record and claims each of the following. And then we gave the parties that are involved. And this would be the place where you can shorten their name to be something other than a long name. So if you have to keep typing a long name, you can give a shorter name in there or just use a last name. That's commonly what they do. So then you can do an introduction, and the introduction basically starts out by saying that they exceeded their jurisdiction, that each counter defendant exceeded their jurisdiction under color of law by either directly or through an agent or in concert with another in attempt to unlawfully and forcefully, in this case, extort money from counterclaimant and remove counterclaimant from counterclaimant's domicile and land against counterclaimant's will without jurisdiction or good cause. So that's the first part of it. You do the introduction, then you go into specifics about what each one did. This would be a place where you can do your footnotes and you can do your exhibits. I had never worked with footnotes before doing this paper, and it went a lot better than I thought it would. So I was really glad about that. So some of those things may seem a little bit frustrating in the beginning, but once you get into it, it's easier to understand. So that's basically where it went through. And as we just discussed, there are different causes of action. And that's because there are different trespasses. Each kind of trespass is kind of addressed not in terms of spelling it out so specifically as in what those people did. When you're through the causes of action on that trespass, that's when you are going to come into the what do you call it here? The request for relief. And then you're going to go through and put in what your request for relief is. And that's what that all is about. Now, the whole reason it appears when we put in the request for relief, or so to speak, however we're putting it, it appears like to other people that we're asking them to do something like a different judge. That's not the case at all. This is your court of record. You're the judge. You're the one that puts in what you need to have in here. And so with that, when you've got this request for relief, it's just giving these defendants an idea of what you're going for. And those defendants have a responsibility to answer back. If they don't answer back, well, that's on them. That's the way that goes. If they don't answer back, it's on them. And that's when you can get your default judgment. So that's something that can happen down the road. I think we could see some of those papers if we were to look further on Justice Tadlock's case over on afreecountry.com. We would see some of those papers over there. They've got some really good papers over there. Everything from, a writ of error to some other things on how they answered back to one of the lawyers who did actually come in and say something on their case. So a lot of that is already in there, and you are going to be able to look at afreecountry.com, and you're going to be able to decide whether or not those are other things you're going to use for your case or not. So with that, I know it's not detailed that I just went through, but because each court of record is a little bit different in the fact that it has different causes and actions, it's in order to make this your case, you would use this as basically a springboard for what you want to do. Are there questions regarding what we've just gone over, or do you have a new question?
Hey, I have another question if I can, Judge Micky.
You sure may. And who is this?
This is Rick in Arizona.
Okay, Rick, go ahead.
Well, I'm just curious let's say you had a cause of action, you want to put your claim together. Is there someone, because I know you're one busy lady, and I'm sure Michael Hamilton is also extremely busy. Is there someone that could review it so we didn't do something stupid? They could read through it and make sure, hey, that's pretty good. Doesn't have to be. We don't have to be Clarence Darrow here or anything. We're just people with a claim. But it'd be nice if someone could review it and make sure we didn't do any really big blunders or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what Justice Hamilton is doing over there. People can put him up there and he will look at it. And I have helped some people by looking at theirs. And so, if I can help out once in a while and I can look over something. I'm not saying that I'm any expert at this. I'm still working this through like the rest of you. And I by no means I'm not an expert on this. The only reason that Judge Doucette asked me to do this was because there were a lot of people that had a lot of questions, and he just figured that having a forum like this open could be a place to do that. And I still talk with Justice Hamilton and on occasion with Justice Tadlock, and I can ask them questions. And so generally I even go over things with them at times as well. So if I don't know the answer to something, I might be able to hunt it down for you.
That's great. That's good. That would definitely help because obviously I don't have any means of contacting Judge Hamilton or Mr. Tadlock either. I think I actually do have Tadlock's phone number from a prior call.
Did we lose you? I think we might have lost Rick. While we're waiting, because I'm sure he'll be back on, what other questions can I help other people with?
May I?
You may. And who is this?
This is Pam on Florida.
Okay.
I hope this call is being recorded, correct?
It is. Believe it or not, I hit record a little while ago.
So how would one go about re-listening to the recording?
I am going to be talking with Justice DW, and I believe he will put it up for us. I will find out, but I believe that's what we had talked about.
Okay, there's no certain place to look for the recording or anything at the moment, or?
When we get it up, it will be someplace on YouTube with broadcast media someplace. Whether he gives us our own channel to put it up or whatever they want to do on that, I don't know. Or maybe he'll tell me how I can do it. I don't have any kind of a problem in terms of putting things up. I'm savvy with the computer, so I could even do that as well.
Well, thank you very much. I yield.
Mm-hmm. And was it Rick? Were you done with your questions, Rick?
Yeah, I think so. I just got dropped and I had to call back in. Yeah, that's
Okay.
I would like to, this isn't probably the place for this issue, but I'd like to become like a juror. I'm not sure I could be a justice.
Excuse me a second. You might have to call back in. I can hardly hear you. You're really scratchy.
Okay, I'll call back in.
Okay, thanks. Welcome to everybody that's on the call. I know some of you just probably entered and you're not really sure what's going on. This is the Court of Record call. I'm by no means a expert at this, and I am Justice Micky, and I was asked by Justice Doucette to go ahead and do this call because we have people that are doing their courts of record and they don't know how to go forward maybe, or they just need some other questions answered. So that's why we're here. And I see that Rick is back on. Go ahead, Rick, with what you were saying.
Well, I'm just wondering if I'd like to join. I guess I could just pay the fee and just join a free country. But to my knowledge, there's no one else in metropolitan Phoenix is like 4.5, 5 million people. But I don't know another soul that is even aware of what you're doing and what the people in Colorado are doing, what you and Justice Hamilton are doing. I don't know anybody else. It's like I said, I've pretty much kept my head down for the last 10 or 12 years. So, because most people in my experience, if you start talking to them about the truth, they'd rather watch football. They don't really care.
Well, yeah, that's true. So in terms of what we're doing, there might be people. I'm trying to think if I know of anybody else in Arizona. Boy, I don't know. I used to know, well, I do know there's two of you that are actually on here from Arizona. That part I do know. So there's a couple of you anyways.
Yeah. Can you tell from looking at the other person that's in Arizona, does it give like a prefix for their phone or something like that?
The person that is also on here from Arizona, would you like to come on and talk with us?
Yes, I'm from Arizona. I'm from Pima County.
Oh, you're way south. He's down in Tucson or something.
Well, actually, it's near Marana, just about 30 miles north and west of Tucson.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
We emailed one another. I can't think of his name right now. Steve something, right?
Yeah, that's me, Steve Price.
Yeah, Price. There you go. Yeah. We're separated by quite a few miles, though. And anyway.
Yeah, where are you at?
I'm in Peoria, which is a little part of metropolitan Phoenix.
Okay, yeah, I know where that's at. Do you want me my phone number or my email address or both?
I have all that already, Steve.
You have that already?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Okay, well, you can contact me any way you want to, anytime.
Distance between us so we could actually get together and work with one another. See, you need to set up a juror society where you are. We need judges and marshals and all that. We need all that in Maricopa County, also in Arizona.
Yeah,
it's just amazing how much is going on.
I agree.
Nothing's going on in Arizona.
I'd be glad to hear from you.
Yeah, we already spoken.
All right. Okay. Well,
What was your
At
name
least-
again?
It's Rick.
Rick. Okay, I think I remember.
Yeah, it's been a couple, 3 months.
Yeah, okay.
Alrighty.
Anyway,
Well, I'll tell you what.
I just thought maybe you knew someone else, Judge Mickey, that might be in Arizona. I'd like to become a part of a jural society, a jury member, grand jury member. I'm not so sure I want to be a marshal just yet. I'm not sure if I qualify to be a judge. But in any case, I just would like to. I'd like to join and be part of that, and be part of a freecountry.com also. But there's
Well,
just having one person in Arizona is not going to do much.
what you need to do, Rick, is you need to maybe put the word out there, and I can help you with that. You have my email address, okay?
Yeah, I
If
do.
anybody from this group ever emails me, always put in the subject line what it is I'm supposed to send you, because my brain doesn't work really well. And if you put, send whatever, then that way I'll know what it is. So, like, Rick, if you would email me, I can send you the information to help to get the word out there for getting your assembly up there going, okay?
All right, I'll send you an email later tonight then when the call is finished.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
No problem. All right, so for those of you that came in late, we were looking over the counterclaim. We went over it in not totally deep specific, but we did go over the different parts about it. And if you have had a copy of that and you have questions, this would be a good time to ask. Is there something that you want to ask in specific regarding the counterclaim?
If I may.
You may. How are you, Judge Johnson?
Fabulous. Wake me up when you get to the filing and instruction procedures pertaining to their forum known as a court itself.
Well, we can go over that right now, unless somebody
Okay.
else has other questions regarding the exact part of the counterclaim.
I'm good.
I'm all for jumping chickens. That's what we say in my neck of the woods. Jumping chickens. It's when you
Chickens.
switch from
Okay.
one to the
Well,
other.
the ones in my neighborhood I hear, but I don't see them.
Okay. So basically, go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead. Do me the ABC or 1, 2, 3 on how to go about filing one of these bad boys and getting an appointment or case number and all that lovely stuff, so that even the Etch-a-Sketch. Please do.
Okay. So of course, number one, you're going to get your counterclaim done. You're going to have all your defendants' names in the heading of that counterclaim. If you don't have a copy of the counterclaim and you need one, email me and I'll send it to you so you can see it. But in the heading, you should have all your defendants' names, and the end of the paper will be all the defendants' names with their addresses for filing purposes. Now, I filed one way, and Tadlock and them filed a different way, so I'll give you both ways of filing. They're kind of sort of the same, but they are a titch different. So once you've got your counterclaim all done, you want to make sure you go over it, of course, very well, have somebody else look it over for you, and you want to make sure that you attach all the exhibits that you're going to attach. And now most places, if you are filing a typical case, they a lot of times have a sheet of paper that they give you that you write the name on each one of the individual defendants. And then they would turn around and use that as a cover sheet. They would make a copy of your counterclaim and they would send it to each one. So when you get your counterclaim done and you've got all your exhibits, you're going to go to your the United States Federal Courthouse nearest you. If you don't have one close that you can go to, you can always mail it. That's not a problem. Now, when you go to the courthouse, usually there's just a counter there, and they ask you, if they can help you, and you just say, yeah, I'd like to file this. They're going to want one of two things from you. They're going to want you either to pay a fee. I think in the United States federal court, it's like $4.20 or something right now. I'm not totally positive. So you would pay them the money, or you would do what's called an informa papyrus. If you're going to do their informa papyrus, then you would fill out their paperwork, and then they would make a determination whether or not you can file the case based on the fact that you don't have the money to file. Now, one thing that I know that they did, I believe it was with Tadlock's case, but I'm not positive, is they did an order granting themselves the informa papyrus. I do have a copy of that order, and you can, there again, email me, and I will get that to you. So they did their own granting of the informa papyrus, and here's why. The reason they did the granting for the informa papyrus is because it's their court. It's their case. And so they granted it to themselves. Now, in my situation, I started out to do an order that way. I was going to do that very thing, and then they would not accept my case. It took me 3 tries to get my case in. The third time, I got it in. I did not get it in with an informa papyrus, nor did I pay the fee. And they accepted it, and they gave me case number. When they accept your case, they give you case number. Now, if technically speaking, once a case is received, it is filed, whether there is a number on it or not. And Justice Hamilton has that information somewhere on his website, but I don't know where. I can't tell you. I've seen so many things, and I've been to so many places on his website. I can't tell you where to look, but he does have it on afreecountry.com. And so you could look there. He also, if I'm not mistaken, has a paper in regards to the fact that people are not supposed to pay for justice. They are to obtain it freely. But as you know, the reason why they charge us when we go in there is twofold. One, because they aren't treating us as people, but as persons. Two, because they're corporations, they're private corporations. If you don't believe me, look up your judges, look up your courthouses. They are corporations. They have DUNS numbers. Many of them are even on Manta.com. M-A-N-T-A, Manta. It's for private small businesses are on that. So if you look on there, you would be able to find out what those companies, how many employees they have, and it would show you that they're private corporations, and they will give you a manager's name. So when I looked up, like, for instance, the local sheriff's department, I laughed when I looked at the sheriff's name. She's considered a manager. She's a manager. She's not listed as sheriff such and such. She is listed as a manager. Nothing more, nothing less. So those are your steps. You're going to go there and you're going to do one of those methods, basically, and you're going to get a case number. And then from that point on, if they accept it by payment, or if they accept it by you giving them one of their informa papyruses, then they will file on your defendants, because your defendants have to get a summons. Now, the summons, as I'm finding out, a summons is basically an outlaw term we were ever supposed to do what's called original writs. If you look in the common law book of pleadings that I talked about last week, that common law book of pleadings talks about original writs. The summons was their way, and as they do with everything, they twist that which is good and they twist it into something else. So a summons. No, an original writ was basically saying, hey, I have a problem with you. Here's your opportunity to fix it. And then if they don't fix it, well, then you get to take your next steps. So that's the way that if you've never brought a case in, that's the method by which you do it. Judge Johnson, does that help?
Yes, it does. And when DW posts it again, I'm going to have to listen to this part of it. And in fact, right now I'm looking at the clock to figure out where this part of it is, and we'll re-listen to it a couple of times. You already sent me the informer pauperous order, which I appreciate, and I'll have to figure out how Denver's federal system functions up there that way. I had to go digging through their website and figure that out, because they'll probably require me to do their informer pauperous, which I'll have to figure out how all the terminologies work on that part. But that's an effort for a later time, like maybe Sunday afternoon. I yield the floor.
And I'm thinking, I can't remember. I want to say it was Justice Tadlock, either that or somebody else I talked to, basically said the goal is to just get it filed. And I would agree with that statement. As to the reason why I didn't want to use their informer pauperous and why I put up such a fight when I did our sons is because I don't want them to have any control of our case that is being housed in their building. That file number should be merely nothing more than a file housing number, any more than you have a book at the library that's got a number attached so you can find it again. Or in any other office where they have a file system, it's a way to recall what's in that and to add whatever you're going to be adding to that to your case in their building. And that's, I think, the biggest hurdle that most people have. It's the comprehending that this is your case. You're filing it. You call the shots. It's your court of record. And so I did not want to have one of their informer pauperouses, and I managed to get it filed without. But that being said, interestingly, of course, their judge closed my case, or he thinks he did. But he received a writ of error on that situation, and I let him know right off the bat that what he did was wrong, and I explained to him why it was wrong. And so at that point, now we're just doing the amended. But the biggest problem is it did hurt my son only from the standpoint that we ended up with a situation where the defendants did not get served, which allowed the bank to come and take the house fairly quickly. So that was one of our problems, and that's something that I now regret, that we didn't get those defendants served quicker. But on the other hand, it makes it easy now for doing the amended filing as I'm doing. So it makes it easy from that resolve. So I'm going to be getting that amended in here. I had hoped to have it in before this, but I didn't have it in quite yet. And I don't know exactly, I don't know exactly what I'm going to exactly get further on this amended and how we're going to go forward. So it's taking me a little bit longer to make sure that I get in what we need to get in there. We did add some defendants and we added some causes of actions. So that being said, are there questions on that part of it?
I have a question.
And you are who and on what state are you?
I'm in beautiful sunny California. My name is Robert Jones.
Okay, good to have you on the
And
call. What can I? Okay, go ahead.
my question is, okay, you just said you did an amended return. Was that did you touch bases on anything on the accounting? Anything that deals with the accounting of the procedure in court when you were dealing with
I'm saying
with your situation?
say an amended return. I meant a amended counterclaim.
Oh, you did a counterclaim. Did you? Okay, let me ask. The reason why I'm asking this is because of the fact that I used to work for the IRS, and everything I deal with on an accounting basis. And a lot of times, situations happens with these foreclosures and these mortgage situations. Everything is based on the accounting, and that's what a lot of folks need to really get a clear picture, because the most important thing is the numbers. And these attorneys, like, they're taking you in as a defendant in court, they are falsifying the liability of the asset because of the fact that they never even touched the asset or the liability that they're claiming. They're just claiming fake numbers that they're taking everybody's property as a gift and not reporting nothing to the IRS. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there in everybody's head.
I think that's wonderful, and I think there's a lot of people on the call that would like a little more information. If you wouldn't mind sharing about that, I think that's wonderful. Basically, what I would say is people need to file a return, basically regarding the note, regarding, I suppose you would do some kind of what do they call it, amortization to see what that note made, and then also regarding the sale. Can you tell people what steps you would do?
Sure. What I would do is this. I would get enough data on the property. First, what I would want to do is get an accounting. See, the reason why the attorneys are beating everybody in court is because we're basing everything on these court cases that the judges and everybody are not listening to. You know, like that case that just came out in the California Supreme Court called about the assignment. Well, that's, if you really pay attention, the most important thing is you want to get enough data on your property. You want to get a forensic audit. You want to get a document examination to make sure that the documents are not forged. Then what you want to do after that, you want to get an accounting. You want to get an accounting done on the property. Then what you want to do is find out how these numbers coexist with the third parties. See, and another thing you got to remember is this. With these numbers that they're allegedly putting on these instruments, these numbers, all they're doing is putting a number there, and they don't have no relationship with the original beneficiary of record whatsoever. So by them not having any relationship with the original beneficiary of record, how can they substantiate any kind of liability, any kind of claim? Because there is no liability.
Right.
If it was, and the thing about it is, if it was a liability, how come they're not reporting it on the tax return? They're not. The attorneys, what the attorneys are doing is they're committing GAAP fraud, which is in violation of the general accepted accounting principles and the general accepted accounting standards. They're doing what you call the double dipping. First,
Absolutely.
yes. First, what they're doing is they use a phony credit bid to obtain possession of your property. Okay? The beneficiary doesn't exist, the numbers doesn't exist, and then they put on the trust deed upon sale that they're exempt. How can you be exempt when you haven't filed a 501c3 or you never filed a state tax return showing that you are a non-profit organization? So then after they do that, they switch you and take you into an unlawful detainer court. Then they say it's $10,000. But guess what? They never filed any rental tax returns, no kind of tax returns to show that they were in some kind of lease agreement. So really, they falsify the numbers, and they're supposed to post a bond in court, show that everything is correct. So they do everything half correct, and then make you liable, kick you out of the house, say they got the house as a gift, and then say you abandoned the property. And that's how they evade and avoid all the taxes.
Agreed. Now, what about the people that file like a 1099-A and all of that on the tax returns? Because I have someone that recently approached us about doing this, and he was going to have us file a, believe it or not, a 1041, I believe a Schedule D, with a 1099-A, B, and C.
Right. Okay, see, let me explain to you how that works. Okay, on a 1099, the beneficiary, which is the lender, supposed to send you a 1099 interest statement every year. Even if you haven't paid anything into the loan, they're supposed to send you a 1099 INT. But the problem is they switch hands and switch assignments so many times to where they don't send you a 1099 INT. And they're required by federal law to send you a 1099 INT. That's why they switch things up so quick to make it seem as if you abandoned the property. That's why they move so quick with everything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What would be?
And let me
Ted?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Keep going. I don't want to interrupt. You're on a roll, and I know people are interested, so keep going.
Oh, okay. Here's another thing. If you look into the Internal Revenue Code, okay, in the Internal Revenue Code, under Subtitle A, deals with income tax. Where our question is, and where our subject matter is, in Subtitle B. Subtitle B deals with, if you ever look in the Internal Revenue Code, it talks about estate. An estate means real estate. So basically, an estate is like estate and gift tax. So when they come in and they rob your estate, what they're basically doing by robbing your estate is they're already making it as if the probate issue has already been settled. So when they go in and say, well, when they take you to the unlawful detainer court and take possession of your property, what they're basically saying is that, oh, the estate has been settled, but I'm the new owner of the property. But in the meantime, while I'm the new owner of the property, I'm going ahead and I'm going to file this as a gift tax, meaning that whoever lived here before abandoned the property. But they're never going to tell you how the whole procedure took place. And what they were supposed to do is file a declaration in the county recorder's office as a beneficiary record. See, only the beneficiary record has 100% ownership to the property. When a third party comes in here, a third party's only coming here as someone like off the street, basically, just coming knocking in, open up your door, and coming in and taking possession of the property. So the Internal Revenue Code defines it as theft. When it becomes theft because of the fact that they never substantiate their claim. Now, if you look at the promissory note itself, the promissory note is like a check. It's basically, it becomes an asset. But if you actually look up Title 31, money and finance means that when that asset was taking place from the very beginning, that asset was cash. What they did was they created the third parties, when they steal your property, they create a cost and a risk. And these are all accounting terms. And that's how you want to attack them. Don't attack them so much with the law. Attack them with the accounting terms. Because the reason why you want to attack them with the accounting terms, because numbers do not lie. Numbers will never lie. See, how are you going to substantiate? I'm going to tell you something. Okay, it's called a data breach. How are you going to substantiate a number that you never, ever have given anyone, let me think for a second. How are you going to substantiate a number that is not connected to you or the other party? It's an impossibility. And it's a mathematical error right there. See, and this is only speaking from the mathematical side, because in the math will clearly show you, like, you create another account number, okay? But the original account number that's on the deed of trust matches that promissory note. That's why there's a court case called French versus Edwards where it says that the note and the deed of trust can be separated. And you want to know why? Because mathematically, the note has a number attached to the deed of trust. So when that deed of trust becomes becomes an asset, then the asset turns into what? Cash. So then when a third party comes in there, somewhere around 2014, saying you defaulted on the deed of trust, and they never had no relationship with the beneficiary, no relationship with the deed of trust, and no relationship with the promissory note. So they create another account number, and then they put a number out there saying that you owe this amount of money. But how can you owe something that you've never had a relationship to owe from the very beginning, when the whole contract was something totally different?
Correct. Very
Does
interesting.
that make sense?
Micky,
Absolutely.
Micky, get that guy's contact info. It's Nemo.
Yes, Nemo. I know that, boys. Thank
Get
you.
that guy's contact info. And I
I
rest.
do. Actually, I do, Robert. I do have your contact info. I can see it here on the board. And if you don't mind, I would like to talk with you further about this. And I would like to invite you back even next week if you would like to even come back and talk on this.
Sure. Or to a good friend. His name is David Katz. He's like a brother of mine. He's like a best friend. I love him. And he called me on the phone while I was on the phone, matter of fact, with another person talking about the same thing. And he said, Robert, you need to get on this phone call. So thank David. David is the reason why I'm on this phone call.
Well, thank you, David.
I don't know if you remember me, Micky. I'm the one in San Diego that just lost his house.
You just what?
I'm the one that just lost my house in San Diego. I got on your phone call last week,
Okay.
and I was working with Mr. Benson.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm just waiting I'm the one that brought Robert in, so I want all you guys to hear about the little tax thing. That is a huge, huge, huge issue.
It is a huge issue, and it dovetails actually very well with our counterclaims. The reason why is because what these people are doing from the mathematical part and listening to what Robert is saying, this is the reason why we have to do these counterclaims, because what they're doing is fraud right down the line. But hearing it from somebody like Robert who has seen the numbers, well, that makes all the difference.
Let me tell you something. When you go in that court, let me tell you something. When you go in that court, I'm going to tell all you guys is go get you a Texas calculator. Get you a Texas calculator, a Texas instrument calculator. When you go in that court, you know what you do? You say, wait a minute, Your Honor, there's a mathematical error here. And this mathematical error is causing you guys not to validate the books. This is not being validated correctly because number one, I'm gonna petition this to tax court, to the IRS, because there's some kind of theft here, you know. That's
Is it true that we go ahead, Robert? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Oh no! I was just saying that's why I realized. I said the accounting is everything. The math is everything in there. It's everything in there. That's where all your money is at in the accounting.
I would agree. Is it true that a 3549 is a good document to file when you've tried to get them to do what they're supposed to be doing and they're not, and have that turned into the IRS for them to start doing their investigation?
Yeah, you do a 3949A and you want to do a 211, IRS form 211. And then what you want to do is have a breakdown in the accounting. You see, don't contact the state attorney general. Don't ever contact the state attorney general. None of those. You know who you want to contact? You want to contact all the money people, the treasurer. You want to contact the franchise tax board, all the financial service departments. That's who you want to contact. You want to go to where the money's at. The state attorney general is not going to do nothing because he's in bed with them. But you want to go to where the money's at. That's where you want to attack.
Yeah, I would never go to an attorney general because 2 years ago, I contacted the attorney general regarding an issue, and he told me right straight out, we always, how do you put it? We always protect the corporations, And I said, so you don't help the consumers? He said, no, ma'am, we don't.
Yeah, they don't. They absolutely do not help the consumer. See, you want to go to the financial industries will help the consumer because that's what's happening. They're digging in the financial industry's pocket. Like for instance, like Quality Loan Service. Quality Loan Service is basically saying, first they're saying they're a debt collector, then they're not a debt collector. Then they're saying that they are a loan service. And you know what they do? Quality Loan Service does? Quality Loan Service passes the buck to different other third parties. These are third parties that have never given anybody a loan whatsoever. Nothing. They don't have nothing to do with your agreement. Nothing.
Well, you know, I looked up the what do you call it? The credit union that gave our son, quote unquote, his loan that they never give you. And they are a nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
Now, my question,
So
if you're nonprofit, how do you get to make profit off of all these homes?
Well, because you know how? Because they're not reporting it.
Exactly. That was my whole thing was, obviously you're not reporting to the IRS. I think the IRS needs to know about your little game.
Right. They're not reporting nothing to the IRS. Let me tell you something. There's a beneficiary form that they're supposed to file with a Schedule K. I think it's a Schedule K. See, you want to know what you want to know is the IRS forms on what they're supposed to file and how the forms affect you. So based upon the forms they're supposed to file and how it affects you, then you could show the IRS that here's theft because they were required by law to file an 1120. I think there's an 8300 tax return. They're supposed to file these actual returns they're supposed to file. And these returns they're supposed to file them on a quarterly level, on a quarterly basis, and they're supposed to file them at 12/31/01, 12/31/08, 12/31/10, 12/31/12, 12/31/14, 16, 17, etc. They're supposed to file all that. Because if you're saying that, then they're supposed to submit to you a 1099 INT. On every year, you're supposed to get a 1099 INT. If you're the beneficiary of record, you can't just say I'm the beneficiary or I work on behalf of the beneficiary, but you don't have a relationship with the beneficiary. Then when they take your property, they're supposed to record that in the county recorder's office. They're supposed to record the declaration signed off by the original beneficiary of record, executing the whole process. Then they're supposed to make sure you get paid on top of that.
Very interesting. Very, very good information. Yeah. Hearing from somebody who was in the IRS, what exactly were you doing in the IRS when you were there, if you can tell us and if you don't mind telling us?
Well, I worked in the real estate division for the IRS for a couple of years. Then I worked in one department for the IRS called EPEO, Employee Plans and Exempt Organization, and that dealt with pension plans and annuities and nonprofit organizations. That's why I know so much about this, because when I worked in that particular department, they moved everything to Cincinnati. So if you ever notice, if you get a determination letter from the IRS and it's coming from Ohio, they moved everything from the LA office, which is downtown LA, which we call it headquarters. They moved everything from there to Cincinnati. That's where you get your 501c3s at and your determination letter.
What about determination letters like we just got a notice of deficiency out of Ogden, Utah? How real are these people that are doing this stuff?
Well, a lot of them are just computer generated, and what you need to do when you get a determination letter like that from the IRS, you want to immediately ask for the assessment. See, under Code Section 6203 talks about method of assessment in the Internal Revenue Code. So what you want to do is you want to ask. See, that's with anything. An assessment means the accounting. So what you want to do is get an assessment. And you want to validate the assessment and that determination letter if the IRS has the right to move forward or do they have a true liability. Because a lot of times they make mistakes.
Okay, because we technically received just recently for ourselves, we technically received a notice of deficiency from Krista L. Davis, and in there they gave an assessment automatically with it.
They gave an assessment?
Well, do you call it an assessment? It's called income tax examination changes.
Oh, they did a return already. They did a return on before you, for you. That's what they did.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you know what you need to do? You need
No,
to
I'd
tell
like
them
to
you don't consent. Tell them you don't consent to those changes. Tell them
Okay.
that what you need to do is tell the IRS that you don't consent to those changes and you would like to request for a hearing. Now, is it in collection status? Is it in collection?
No.
Okay. Now, since it's not in collection status, you can do an abatement. Like, I think there's a form. It's a form you do an abatement for. No, do an audit reconsideration. That's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. You want to do an audit and reconsideration. You want to tell them. You want to tell them that you want to request to do an audit and reconsideration. It's almost like doing a offer and compromise in a sense. But what you're basically doing is you want them to redo the audit so they can make sure those numbers coexist. And that's with anything. If everybody's listening out there, this is what you want to do in any aspect of what you're dealing with out here. You want to see, the thing about it is you want to crunch the numbers. And that's everybody's main fear. Even my fear when I was growing up, everything was about math. I was so scared of math. But if you really stop and think about it, math can be your biggest protection because everybody's property out here is our IRS issues, our debt validation issues, is all based on mathematical errors and being overbilled and billing errors. But if we really focus on more so on the math, we can conquer so much in dealing with the math because the math, to be honest with you, math is your silver bullet. That is
Yeah, but what about the fact, like with us?
You understand the math.
What about with us?
Huh?
What about with us? The reason that they did what they did, they did not accept our 3949s.
Oh, they didn't accept it. Oh, I could get that accepted.
How?
There's a certain way how you have to get it. Let me tell you, when you're dealing with the IRS, to get them to accept anything you do, you have to speak the language. Like if you go to China, and you got to speak Chinese, or you go to Italy, you got to speak Italian. You go to French or English, whatever it is, you got to speak the language. So what I mean is, the IRS only understands accounting language because it's one of the biggest accounting for the government. So you have to speak in the language of accounting, GAAP, the cost and the risk, all that kind of stuff. You got to speak in that language. Once you establish that, then the IRS has no other way but to understand. Does that make sense?
It does, and maybe I'll get a hold of you later on my particular circumstance, and maybe you can give me a help out with that, if you wouldn't mind. And in turn, if I can help you out with something, I will be glad to.
Sure. Matter of fact, what you want to do is, if everybody's out there, call U.S. I think it's United States. What is it called? Institute of America. But everybody should get an IRS code book. You should immediately buy an Internal Revenue Code book, because there's over 3,000 pages, and the heart of the Internal Revenue Code, if everybody's out there, is Code Section 7851. 7851 is the applicability of the revenue laws, and what the revenue laws are basically how everything is being evolved. It's through it's revenue, how revenue is coming in and revenue is going out. So the reason why you want to understand that is because once you read about, I think it's Code Section 671 to 677, it also deals with the trust through the estate and gift tax, and it deals with the transfer tax. It deals with it's called FARPTA. It deals with the transfer tax through FARPTA, to where when a transfer takes place on an affidavit on a piece of property, they have 21 days to make sure that transfer is valid. And the transfer has to coexist with the assignment. If not, then it'll be considered theft, and they're receiving property by using dishonest gain and for monetary gain.
Right.
So like when you guys hear the attorney say you want a free house, you know what you tell the attorney? You're stealing a free house to avoid taxes. That's what they're doing.
I never thought of it that way, but that would be it. They get a free house to avoid taxes. Nice.
Yeah. So that's what the attorney's doing. The attorney, it's like this. When they say ignorance of the law is no excuse, well, it applies to the attorney. Well, the attorney's supposed to wear a CPA's cap. If he doesn't know the accounting of the note, how can he substantiate a claim when he didn't even do the math his own self to substantiate it? So now how is the attorney is going to force a liability on an asset when he doesn't even have no understanding of the liability and the asset, and he just created a cost and a risk. And he also violated what you would call gross negligence, which is a violation of the general accepted accounting principles.
Wow. But even on top of some of this is the fact that most of us don't owe taxes anyways.
That's how they're beating everybody. That's how they're beating everybody. That's how everybody's losing their properties because of the fact that they don't and they know you don't understand that. But once you start understanding that, it's a whole different ballgame after that. It's a whole different ballgame.
That's amazing. Yeah. If you don't mind, do you mind if I open up the floor for questions?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to open up the floor for questions here. And if you've got a question for Robert regarding some of this, I think now would be a good time to ask him. And I know that we're all learning a lot tonight, and I really appreciate Robert for coming on. I appreciate Dave for having him come on the call. So this is a good night tonight. Go ahead, anybody else with questions?
May I?
You may.
Yes.
Pam, on Florida. Robert, could you please tell me what a 1099 INT is?
Oh, it's a 1099 INT is an interest statement where the lender has to send you a copy every year, your original lender. And the reason why they do that is they have to report the interest. As a matter of fact, let me pull up my computer. I can read you something on that I want you guys to hear. Let me see. Hold on one second. I can read. Let me pull it up real quick. 299. Give me 1 second, and I'm gonna read it to you exactly what it means and why it's a benefit to you as a homeowner. 1099. Give me 1 second. 1099 INT. There we go. I just had it. Give me 1 second. There it is. It's right here. Okay, give me 1 second, okay? Give me 1 second, okay?
That's okay. You take your time.
Okay. Yeah, because I want to read you the proper information on exactly what it says. Okay, it's in my exhibit list. Okay, here we go. One second. Yeah, I really want to read this to you because then once I read this to you, then it'll give you a clear picture and it'll answer your question. And you'll see why it's so important. Here we go. Oh boy. Oh, man. Ah, boy. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, I really want to read this to you so you can, to give you guys a clear picture. But I like teaching this stuff to people because, so many people just end up losing and they don't know why and what they're dealing with out here. But if you can give them the right information to help them, it makes you feel good, to actually help somebody.
Absolutely.
Okay, give me 1 second. Where is it at? 1099 INT. Hold on. Okay, here we go. I think this is it. Nope. That's the instructions. I should have it pull up in a few minutes.
Not a problem.
Okay. Okay. The 1099 INT is interest and on income. Okay. And the importance of it is this. It says it's basically it's a form. And on the form, the lender has to fill out a part, and the lender has to put the interest in line 1 of the form. Okay. And from that form, they have to send you a copy of the 1099, which would be you, which would be the recipient, which would be you. So every year, and it says it right here. It says this is an important tax information and is being furnished to the Internal Revenue Service. If you are required to file a return, a negligence penalty or other sanctions may be imposed on you if this income is taxable and the IRS determines that it has not been reported. So basically, the lender, which is the borrower, has to report this form every year, and it's called the FACTA filing. It says the FACTA filing requirement in box is checked. The payer is reporting on this form, which is on 1099. So they're required, but I wanted to show you the actual revenue law that backs up what I'm saying. But they're required to file that form.
Nice.
Do you understand, ma'am?
Yeah. Would you happen to have a website where we could find that at?
What I can do when the other lady called me, I'll shoot it over to her and get her the information and get over to you.
All right. Thank
Yep.
you very much.
And just so everybody knows, again, I'm Justice Micky, and I'm doing these calls. So if you need to get a hold of me, my email address again is gentle. That's one word. The next word is secret. And the third word is S as in Sam, I as in igloo, S as in Sam. So gentle, secret, sis, and that's at gmail.com.
May I, please?
May.
Yeah, this is Gary Don from the Thumb of Michigan. And
Hi, Gary.
I'd like to ask Robert a quick question. Who is the responsible party, including any government agencies, for putting all these codes and this revenue law into being, and all the forms that go with it? Who is the responsible party? I'd like to know that. Thank you. Now
Who would be the responsible party? Then you would say the Treasury Department whoever's part of the tax administration division, because you got to remember, we're dealing with what you call like in California, it's called judicial council. Okay, and with the taxes and the revenues and putting that together, then they have their own judicial branch that deals with revenue and taxation. So they would be mainly responsible for putting the Internal Revenue Code and all the tax laws together.
Well, I thought, excuse me, this is Gary Don again. I thought that only Congress has the right to write the laws.
Well, yeah, Congress approves it, but the thing about it is, once it's written, they send it over to Congress. Congress approves it, and then that's when it goes into the legislation.
Actually, if I may, I'd like to bring out a fact. I would like to make out a fact that the people only can make law. The rest of them only do statutes. Only people can make law. And the people make the law, and the people pass that on to quote unquote government.
Right. Exactly.
May I, Josh, Micky?
I hope I was clear when I asked your question, sir.
Yeah, this is Anna Marie, and I am the one who referred David Katz. Okay? But anyway, I have a question for Robert. I lost a property about 3 years ago, and I received the, I think it was the 1099 or 1098, I can't remember, for 3 different banks. In other words, 3 different banks claimed that my home. Now, can I report it even though it happened so long ago?
Oh, let me tell you something. You could go back. I have another associate who works with me who's a CPA. He used to work for one of the top CPA in the country, and then he also used to work for the IRS too. Well, this is the thing which you want to keep in mind. You want to focus on who was the original beneficiary. Who was the original beneficiary of record?
I think it was, what is it called? This huge company in Delaware.
Okay.
Remember MIC, or what is it called? You know, they don't have any people. They only was a computer. I'm trying to think, what is it called? Gosh, I can't think about it right now. MERS, that's it. They were the
Let me tell you what you do. Let me tell you how to do. Oh God. Let me tell you what you do. What you want to do is this. You want to go to the Secretary of State website in Delaware. Okay. And what you want to do is pull the records to see exactly where they registered to do business. And this is a whole other subject that'll blow you guys' mind. You want to see if they were registered to do business in the state of Delaware. Now, if they wasn't registered to do business in the state of Delaware, then what you want to do is check to see if there was a merger certificate. If they merge with the other banks or anything. If they didn't do that, now you have a claim. And that claim will show that now they owe you money based on the fact that they didn't everything is about relationships. Remember that. They didn't have a relationship with the original beneficiary of record whatsoever. Then the 1099 that they sent you was not valid because only the beneficiary of record could send you a 1099. Just like I'm looking at right here. Here's the actual claim. Here's the actual form. It's called Beneficiary Shares of Current Year Income Deductions, Credits, and Other Items. It has to be attached with a Schedule K1 and a Form 1041. Well, if they're the beneficiary, then they have to put all the information in about an estate or a trust. Okay? So that information that they have to put in there, they have to validate the fact that they were the beneficiary of record, you were the borrower, they sent you a 1099 based on the loan amount that was part of the deed and the note. That's how that has to be compliance-wise. Now, in order for a third party to be there, you have to sign off as consent. And then from your signing off as consent, all parties have to be in agreement. You follow me?
Yes. Okay.
Does that make sense?
So what I have to do is file a claim with the IRS, or I just want to notify them.
Well, what you want to do before you file anything with the IRS, this is what I'm going to tell you. And this is for everybody out there. You want to get records. You want to get data on the property. See, what you want to do in order to be successful in this, you want to get data. And once you get enough data to find out that everything they were supposed to do, X, Y, Z, that they didn't do, then you file your claim.
Okay. With the IRS?
Yeah, with the IRS.
Okay.
This is what you want to do. Let me tell you what you want to do. You want to get a forensic audit report on your property. You want to get a forensic audit report. You want to check to make sure all the signatures is legitimate.
Okay.
Then you want to get an account report. Once you get those three items, now you have a valid claim.
Okay.
You want to do your homework first. You don't want to just go in and just say, you know what, I'm just going to submit a claim because of the fact that you think a claim is only going to get you relief. That's not going to get you relief. What's going to get you relief is you doing your homework, getting all the proper documents and all the proper information. Then you want to hit them.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that make
Even
sense?
though it's more than, like, let's say 4 years or something?
Well, there's a form, an IRS form that I talked to you about it. You call me. There's an IRS form that you can file. You can go back 20 years.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Robert.
Yes.
That was great. Back 20 years. That's amazing.
Yeah. And let me tell you something. It will give you such a relief to know once you know the truth and you understand how all this stuff can really work. Trying to deal with it on the aspect with the securitization and all that other stuff, leave it alone. Deal with it on the numbers. What I'm saying that is the numbers never, ever lie.
Agreed.
The numbers is your salvation. I'm telling you, you're afraid of the numbers? Just start. What I would do, I would tell one guy, I said, just go back to school, go to a little city college and take a math class and start understanding percentages. What's 50% of this? I mean, everything we're dealing with out here is basic math.
Right.
That's what we're doing. You know?
Right.
And there's always going to be a number trail in this.
Very true.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yes.
Perfect. Do we have other people that would like to ask a question of Robert?
Sure.
Yes, hello.
Anybody. Yes.
How about we let the lady go first, and then we'll shoot for the guy.
Yes, ma'am. This is Ann. I have a question. Robert, how can one get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me through what's the lady's name?
Justice Micky.
Mickey.
Yeah, you can get in contact through Mickey. I gave Mickey my phone number. Or gave it. My number is 424-355-5129.
I'm sorry. Repeat it again.
424-355-5129.
Okay. The Form 1099. Can you explain that again? Did you say that lists the beneficiaries?
Yeah, that's that form is where the beneficiary of record is supposed to file. And that form, let me see, I got it right here. That form is supposed to be attached with a Schedule K-1. It's a form 1041, and it says beneficiary share of current year income, deductions, credits, and other items. And let me see, and it talks about, let me see.
Yeah, I thought you said it was Form 1099.
No, that's 1099 INT.
Oh, the interest-bearing form. That's what I'm saying. What is significant about that form, the 1099?
Oh, well, the significant part about the 1099 is this. Every year, the lender has the responsibility of sending you a 1099 INT. whether if you paid the mortgage or not. They have to do that. It's required to do that with the IRS. And if they don't do that, what that does is then they can be in trouble. See, and here's another thing they're supposed to do. I didn't tell you this. They're supposed to file a statement with the IRS. The Treasury statement is supposed to file. And the Treasury statement is 1.856. And it talks about, like right here, I have it right here. It deals with 1.856-6 foreclosure property. And it does talks about the real estate investment trust, but they still supposed to follow with the IRS.
Okay, your phone is going in and out, so I can barely hear you. Let me wrap this up. I'm reading court cases where people are doing those forensic audits, and they're getting nowhere in the court. So when
let me tell you why they're not getting nowhere in the court. Got it. When they do an audit, you got to put the right information in an audit, okay? And the audit must be done by a certified auditor. Yeah, a certified auditor. And on top of that, the report has to have the accounting language in there to support the claim. That's what the report has to have. Listen, let me read this to you guys. Okay, here's an article. It says, is interest on a promissory note reported to the IRS? And it's by a person by the name of Tom, the last name is spelled S as in Sam, T-R-E-I-S-S-G-U-T-H. Now, this is what it says. It says, if you have lent money that the borrower agreed through a promissory note pay, and you charging interest on that loan, you will earn interest income that, by law, you must report to the Internal Revenue Service. There are exceptions and conditions attached to this rule, but the IRS essentially considers all interest earned on loans of any kind as taxable income. So in your mind, you want to know what it means, but I'm going to break it down to you right now. A promissory note is a signed and legal contract to repay a loan. The borrower and the lender agree to terms spelled out in the note, including the rate of interest and the repayment schedule. Some promissory notes come with balloon payment clauses, acceleration clauses, if a payment is missed, or on-demand conditions that allow the lender to demand repayment in full at any time. But no matter the terms, any interest earned from a promissory note is taxable income. And it goes on to say that generally any income you generate from a promissory note is taxable income and must be reported. The income generated is simply the interest you earn on the note for the taxable year in question. If you lent the money personally rather than through your business, report the income to your personal income tax return. But if the income from interest is more than $1,500, you must report the interest in a Schedule B. But the point what I'm getting at is the implication. Listen, this is what it says. The general tax implications for the borrower. Then it's going to talk about the lender. It says that tax implications for the borrower largely depends on whether the loan is used for personal purposes or business purposes. But if the loan is for the personal purposes, the interest payments are generally not deductible unless the loan qualifies as a home loan under IRS regulations. On the other hand, if the loan is for a valid business purpose, you may be able to deduct interest payments as ordinary and necessary business expenses as permitted under IRS regulations. Then it goes on further to say loan forgiveness, below the market loans and are forgone interest. No good, wait a minute, oh man, that's not what I was, sorry about that, it was something else I was reading. But what it says, tax implications, that's not all of the whole article, I'm sorry about that. But it was another part to it that talks about the lender has tax implications too by not reporting the 1099.
Okay, one last thing. The Micky or Mrs. Micky or Mrs. Micky, I'm not sure what name she's saying. How does one mute out
You can mute out either on your own handset, or you can, I believe it's star.
Okay, because I've been doing that. It's not saying anything, so I'm not sure if I'm muting.
Well, I can always mute you out. Then you do star to get back on.
Okay, thank
star
you.
6. Mickey?
Well, I did that.
That's star 6?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay,
well,
thank you.
Hello?
I did the star 6, and that didn't work either. So maybe it's my phone. But will you please move me out? Thank you.
I sure can do that. Do you have other questions?
If you like, you could call me because maybe probably better if the young lady that's handling the program, you just go through her and then we set up a time we could talk. Then that way, I can really break a lot of this information down to you guys and help you guys.
Now, the bad part of this, Robert, is I'm going to talk to somebody, but we are planning on uploading this to YouTube. I kind of hated to have your number out there. I was going to stop you when you were giving it. Because this is on a recording. So what I will do is I will see if we can. I got a friend who does some work. I will see if he can blank that out.
Yeah, could he? Definitely.
I will do that before it's uploaded.
Yeah,
I was going to stop you and tell everybody to just call me direct, and then I can help them get in contact with you.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was only like 3 or 4 people on the line. I didn't know it was a lot of folks on the line.
No, there's a few.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind putting you, but I just don't want my numbers floating out there randomly with different folks, you know.
Exactly. So I will talk to him about that, and we will try to get that eliminated before we upload.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
Problem.
Well, I got another engagement I have to take care of, but if you like, I really enjoyed talking to you guys and going over this information because it's really good stuff that people need to know. But I just wanted to say it was a pleasure talking because I love to teach and I love teaching this type of stuff. It's a passion.
Would you consider coming back on next week? Our call is at 7 o'clock on Thursday on the same number, and I can give a portion of time to you then.
Then I could be more prepared, and I could break down some really good subject matters in the Internal Revenue Code about real estate taxes and accounting and all that stuff. That'd be great.
Okay,
I'll be prepared for that.
Okay, I'll plan on that. In the meantime, you'll get a phone call from me here probably tomorrow sometime, and we'll go from there and see how to work some other stuff out.
Okay, you got it. Okay.
Thank
Good
you
night,
for
everybody.
your time tonight. Good night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Well, that was an unexpected surprise tonight, and it really dovetails very well with what we're doing, because this is all the more reason to be doing these counterclaims. So now you know when they take these houses and they're doing these things that they're doing to us, this is the whole reason we need to put in a claim. And now it looks like we could put in a claim on 2 fronts, actually. So I'm very pleased with the info that we received tonight, and that was quite a surprise for us. Okay, does anyone have any questions regarding our original topic, which of course is our counterclaim and how to file a court of record? Do you have any general court of record questions? We did break down one of the counterclaims that we use as a template to springboard. And so if somebody's got a question about the counterclaim itself or court of record, go ahead and ask a question.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you explain the difference between trespass and trespass on the case?
My comprehension, if I have it correct, is basically a trespass on the case. In my, from what I comprehend, it has to do with the trespasses that they committed on us, but they call it as a trespass on the case. I'm not sure why that exact terminology, but I do know that the trespasses, in talking with Justice Hamilton, he explained that it's anything that they basically do to us. So, and I don't think it's case, I think it's trespass on cause. Does he have cause or case?
On the form it says case.
Okay. But that's my explanation. It might not be the best. I can ask Judge Hamilton about that further and try to clear that up.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Yep. Does anyone else have a question? Nobody else has a question on counterclaim, court of record? Go ahead. Got a bit of a noise there, so I just blocked out that caller for the moment. No questions on counterclaim, court of record. You guys got it all perfect down, right?
No.
Come on, what do you mean? Don't you guys have this all down by now?
If I may,
You may.
does the court of record have to be filed in federal courts?
Well, here's the deal. Technically, no. But the reason why we've been filing at a federal level, it appears that the federal judges are better behaved and will stay out of our records. In other words, they're not trying to take over the case all the time. That's what we have found to be true for the most part, but you can actually do a counterclaim in a small local district court if you wanted to.
Okay, that's what I'm going to have to do because I believe the closest federal court for me is 90 miles away, and my vehicle, my private property, has been impounded since March of last year. So I'm
I feel for you. We also have had a vehicle taken away from us that we have refused to pay the bail money on it.
You too. And the last time I went to court, they said I could have my property back if I just paid the $50 tow fee and the token storage fee. And I told them basically to go to hell. I wasn't going to pay for the theft of my property.
That's kind of exactly where we're going.
Okay, I yield. Thank you.
Did someone have a comment regarding that?
Well, can't you pay that and then just claim it in your counterclaim as damages?
Yeah, you could. That's another way to do it. Absolutely, you could. But sometimes some of these things, it depends upon if your matter of principle is stronger or if you want that thing more. So I comprehend where our caller from Kansas was relating, because that's exactly what's been happening in a different situation with my husband and I. And we have refused to pay that bail, and they still have the last we heard, they still have the private coach. We checked on it, and we're going to be checking on it again here soon.
Okay, I yield.
May I?
You may.
Have you sent them a bill for the use of your coach?
Yes, we have actually, and maybe it's time to send them another one just to let them know we're serious. We actually have already liened the tow company. They don't seem to care too much that their property's liened.
No, it's the whole system is that what we know of as courts is an organized crime syndicate. That's all they are, and everybody that makes their living off from it.
Absolutely. Now, the tow truck driver, in our case, the tow truck driver was actually told about the fee and fine schedule that we have. He hesitated for about 2 seconds till the sheriff barked at him to hook up the car. And mind you, our private coach was sitting in a parking lot. It was not traveling at all.
What did they use as a reason for stealing it?
Because they came, oh, this is such a long story. I'll give you the short version if possible.
Yeah.
Because we were in the lion's den, so to speak, in their parking lot with plates on it that were private plates, that weren't state plates, and because they wanted to know who the owner of the private coach was, even though we explained that we were the ones that traveled it there. And so they did a break and enter. Basically, supposedly they got a warrant, though I don't know for sure what the warrant was for. But in the process, they took private property from the coach, and it's just a mess. It's it's a mess. We've done some things with it, but we haven't got the results we want from it yet. So that's the long and the short of it. What I would like to see is I'd like to see our marshals go and get it and take it. That's what I'd like to see happen.
And you've tried to, of course, communicate to the sheriff the error of his ways.
Oh, of course. Do you think they care? I don't think so. Like you just said, they're a bunch of crime syndicate bosses. They don't care. So, yeah, but that's where we're at with that issue. I need to do a court of record on it, but I've got 2 other courts of record that are more important than that particular thing is at the moment. I kind of have to wisely use my time. And being that I'm only one person, I can only do so much paperwork. Any other comments or questions, and anything about the court of record? Something you don't comprehend?
If I may.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, you may. Go ahead.
Paul in Kansas again. When we go in to file a court of record and we give them a list of defendants, are they supposed to subpoena those defendants?
Well, they don't subpoena them. What they do is they give a summons to them.
Okay.
But
go ahead.
Here's the problem. If they are summoning those people through their system, your court of record is not really working. We should really be the ones to send our defendants not a summons, but an original writ. We should be the ones doing that ourselves. And that was a mistake that I made with our son's situation. And you need to serve those people by hand the first time, then you can do mail after that, or even by fax if you needed to. But the first time should be by hand, and it should be somebody who's an arm's length away. What that means is if you're married, your husband, if it's your case, as long as your husband isn't involved in your case, he could go and give all those people the original writ. If it were, it can be that close. It just means that they can't be part of the case.
Okay, so you can't mail it to them? You can't do it certified mail? Because I'm here by myself where I'm at. I have no one to go serve papers for me.
First time I've heard we're supposed to do it by hand. That's what I've heard. I don't know, and this is me personally, I don't know why it couldn't be done by mail. I'm not sure why, because if it's our court of record, I would think we would be able to have our way of filing it. So that's one of those things that I don't know why there should be certain rules. If it's our court of record, we should be able to do it in the manner by which we need to do it.
I agree. I yield. Thank you.
Yep.
By the original writ, are you talking about the counterclaim a copy of the counterclaim, or do you have to write up something else?
The original writ, here's my comprehension, I'm still studying it out. The original writ is what's supposed to go with the counterclaim. In other words, it's the thing that tells the defendant, you are being called into question on this, this, and this. Now, they took away the original writ because they're trying to get rid of common law, and they put in a summons. That's their papers. So because I'm doing my common law court of record, I want to stay as close to the common law as possible, and so I am doing some research on the original writ. And there's a book out there.
Sending a copy of the counter complaint to them is not enough. You have to add something else.
Yes, because let's say you're filing a claim into their court system. They take your claim, they slap on a summons, and they mail it to the defendants. So the original writ is the paper. It's going to be a one-sheet paper that goes on top telling them of the claim against them. Now, in a summons, you are summoning people in at a certain time and day into court. But because our court of record is our court, we're not trying to summon somebody in. We will allow them to put paperwork in for their side of the equation. And that's what the original writ will be all about. It's going to be, here, we have this claim against you, and you will need to answer back this claim, and if not, a default judgment will be given. It can be something very simple. I haven't worked it out yet, or I would, let you know about that. But that's how I'm perceiving it to be.
Do you know if there's any writs on the freecountry.com?
The original writ, no, because when they went through theirs, they had theirs sent out via summonses via the court.
Okay. Thank you. I yield.
Yep.
Question, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Gary Don, the thumb again.
Yep.
My question is this: when you do all this, and you have to bring in a defendant or something, and they won't show up, will the Marshal Service in the federal court will they assist in picking up these people to bring them into the court?
No, Gary, because we don't deal that way. This is not going to be a courtroom where they come into. The court of record is all on paper. If that defendant does not answer back, that's the same as not showing up. You can't make somebody answer back.
Who's going to be the judge?
Pardon me?
Who's the judge? The federal judge?
We are. It's our court. It's our paperwork, Gary.
Oh, no, there's no federal judge sitting in there? That's why you said you went to the federal judge.
No, the federal courthouse is where we house our court of record.
Okay.
There is no federal judge. No federal judges can answer our paperwork. However, each person that puts in a counterclaim, when you start to put orders in or whatever you're doing, make sure you get a continental, United States justice like myself to add to your order. It's your order. We merely are giving them what they want to see, which is a judge's signature. But Gary, we aren't going into there's not a courtroom. There's not a trial. It's not like that. This is a court of record. Okay. It's basically us giving them the information via our paperwork.
Now you said the reason you went to the federal court when I heard you in back here is that the judges were a lot more smarter, and I agree with that. We've been in federal court before, and versus the country courts. Then why would you care who the judges are?
Because in the federal court, they will leave us alone, and they will leave our court alone, and they will not keep sticking their nose where it doesn't belong.
Okay.
In Judge Tadlock's case, the lawyer didn't like something that Judge Tadlock put in his paper, and so the lawyer tried to complain to one of their judges, two different judges, and two different judges basically said, that's not our thing. We're not doing that, is my comprehension of how it went. So those judges upheld our court of record.
Well, we want to thank you for that information. That is really important and has never been explained that I could understand it. But I do understand what you've said, and I really want to thank you for that. I'm sure there's some other folks that are on, I know, and I'm sure they'll be thanking you also.
Well, thank you much. That's my whole goal of doing this was to help people through the process.
Well, I understand it very clearly now, and I thank you for that. It's the first time, and I've been listening on different programs for 4 years now, and that's the first time that the court of record was brought up. And of course, and I talk to Judge Hamilton every once in a while. So now when I talk to him, I'll further understand what goes on, and then I will have some questions about the court of record.
Good, very good.
Yeah, thank you again. Thank you very much.
Welcome. You're very welcome. You know, the whole point of this is we are the court of record, and that's the hardest hurdle for all of us to jump down because of the fact we have so been used to judges ruling over us, we don't comprehend we are the judge in our matters. We are the one. It's our paperwork. It's our court. And so when those judges do try to poke their nose in, the first thing we have to do is basically kind of punch them in the nose back with paperwork and say, hey, get out of my business.
Well, my understanding from Justice Scalia's decision, I read it back in 1993, and we were going to hold some things in our own farm facilities, to set up a grand jury way back then. But my understanding was that they have to give you a room in the courthouse for your grand jury. Now, have you ever? Is there any reason to take a grand jury into the federal courthouse?
Well, here's my whole explanation, if I can give it to you the way I comprehend it. In my opinion, the grand juries that we are going to have in each of our maybe counties or states, however we get them all set up, they technically speaking are for indictments. A grand jury is for an indictment. And so I see the grand juries as bringing forward these attorneys, these black-robed men and women who portray judges, corporations. I basically foresee it coming that way, specifically for the men and women who have harmed the American people, and we bring them into our grand jury, we indict them, and they get punished that way. I don't foresee a grand jury for what I call these everyday matters. I think those everyday matters are supposed to be handled in our own courts of record. That's how I see it. I don't know if that's how others see it.
Well, Judge Hamilton asked me to try and get a federal grand jury up and going, okay? He asked me to work on that, and I've been somewhat successful. But have a federal grand jury, and that's for that very situation that you brought up, and I thank you again on that, because these judges who have ruled in some of these cases that we've been through, and we sure didn't get any justice at all. As a matter of fact, some of them should be tried for treason. And there's no doubt about that. So your opinion seems to me to be 100% right.
Well, thank you. And I hope successfully that you do that. And please include me on any of those plans for that, I would be very interested.
I'll write you in the book.
Thank you very much.
I've got to report to Judge Hamilton where we're at. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that would serve the purpose of going after these judges who have done some terrible, terrible things to our people.
Absolutely.
We the people, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again.
I appreciate that. Very good.
It's getting down to common sense, isn't it?
Indeed it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Any comments, questions about the Court of Record, what you don't understand, or what you have a comment about?
If I may.
May.
Yeah, just basically following up on that gentleman just said from the Thumb of Michigan, why do we even want one of their federal case numbers? Our case is not in their court, but yet we're going to their court and asking them to issue a case number for our case, which is taking place completely outside of their court. Why do we want...
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That is exactly, that's the exact conversation I had with Justice Hamilton a couple weeks ago. So here's how I handled that situation. To prove that this is our court of record, I give our court cases its own number from our own court of record. I have a stamp that says filed by or filed on, and the document number, the date. It says "We the People" on Wisconsin, or however I put it. So we already give it our file number before it goes to the federal court. The federal court is like, look at it as a building that is a bank. It's a repository. So we're putting it out there so that they can hold on to it for these matters, like what I said, our everyday matters. But personally, I would love to see it not even put in with the federal court. I think one of the reasons for going through the federal court, though, was merely to be able to have more validity, if you want to call it that. I'm not sure, because if a defendant receives one from our court of record where there is no case number from their court system, they won't take us seriously. And I know that for a fact, because of the fact that when we tried to file a lis pendens without their case number, they basically acted like our lis pendens was nothing, even though it had our case number on it. Part of that is going to be educating the Register of Deeds in our area and things of this nature. But I couldn't agree with your question more, personally.
Yeah. I was just wondering. I guess it's just a matter of validity then. Because if you go into the court, the United States District Court for whatever district, to the clerk of the court, when you go to file your case, they want to give you a case number, but they want your case to be in their court, so it puts you under their jurisdiction, and then they can have their way with you. That's all they're after. So
absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
We want to be in. I guess the case number just gives the whole thing validity, but we don't want anything to do with them, other than maybe at some point in time we should be able to go, we're the people paid for that building called a courthouse, right? Through taxes and more taxes. So we should have access to some kind of a room in that courthouse where we can actually go in there and process our paperwork and keep our own records, but completely separate from any part of the federal matrix, for lack of a better description. We have nothing to do with them. We want nothing to do with them. We want them to stay completely out of our lives. But we want to have them recognize what we're doing so they stop stealing from us and leave us the hell alone.
Agreed. But here's another thought for that. This is how I see things. You know, when it says "my house, my rules," okay? I would not want to rent a room out of my house to somebody else. Now, I know people do that. I personally would never want to do that. And so I can see why we don't have a room in their building. I have another thought on that issue, and that is that maybe those buildings really aren't ours. Maybe they were not paid with tax dollars. And the reason I say that is because there was a report out. Let's see, I think Reagan did a report, and it said that none of the taxes collected from the people stayed in the United States nor paid for any of the services here at all. And those courthouses that we think are ours, you got to remember, those courthouses actually have DUNS numbers. They are private corporations. Maybe those buildings belong to the private corporation, never did belong to we the people. And so maybe that's why we don't even want a room in their building, if you call it that.
Yeah, because actually we can meet in a public library or in a restaurant for that matter. We don't really need a specific building.
No, what we need is we need a clerk of court that's going to hold the records, and you're going to want, some place to put your stuff into. That's what we really need. We need our own repository is what we really need. And for now, we're merely using them as a bank, as a repository with a special deposit. That doesn't mean it's theirs. It's not in the general population. The general population would be them giving you a number and they get to rule on the number. No, we're talking about a special deposit.
Right, I get it. Well, I'm sure we're going to hone this and get it more and better all the time. Just dealing with it initially.
We will. As we go, we're going to learn more and more each time. That's very true. Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead.
May
I? If the other gentleman was done, are you done?
I'm done. All
okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Santa Claus.
Hi, Santa Claus.
Hey. They provide a miscellaneous file at the federal courthouse. You can open a miscellaneous file.
Yes, that's true. They do.
And there is no case number to it. It's just called a miscellaneous file, and I'm assuming it's there for what we're talking about.
That's an interesting concept, but here's going to be a problem. If they don't give it a case number, how do we know our miscellaneous file has just our stuff in it? And when you would go to serve these defendants, you would make sure you do put your own claim number on it. But once they see that federal number, that does seem to give it validity. So but I see what you're saying, and I forgot about that, but you're right about that.
Because you would put your case number on your paper, on your stuff, and then, like you say, you would what I call, you're calling store it or put it in this miscellaneous file that is provided for that. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any reason for them to offer it.
Yeah, you might be right about that, Santa Claus. That's very possible.
Problem that I see is that we keep imagining that this organized crime cabal is going to go away peacefully and lawfully.
This miscellaneous file, may I? Because I'm intimately aware about those miscellaneous files. This is not possible. It is probable. You go on, you open your miscellaneous file, and you file all paperwork you want in this miscellaneous file. And judge, time to time, whoever they are, federal judge, magistrate, they look through those documents, and you always can refer to those documents in your case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And thank you very much for reminding us of that. That's very good.
It's just that, may I? Again? It's just that where a mugger doesn't have to observe the law, and these people are mugging us. There's just no two ways about it. They're parasites of us.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah. And they're certainly well organized. They have their own fictitious money system, and their own on the Colorado call the other night. What did he call them? Mercenaries? The police are just mercenaries.
That's exactly right.
Like you found, and Paul has found in Kansas. They just don't care. They don't,
They don't.
It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. It makes you want to ask Putin to come over and help us out.
I believe Putin has tried to help us out many times. I do not believe China or Russia have ever been our enemies. I believe they've always been there trying to help us out, and I believe they were portrayed as enemies because they wanted the American people to know the truth, and the powers that be, of course, don't want this little game to go away. My personal opinion.
Certainly valid.
Okay, I yield.
Floor is open for any comments or questions.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
It's regarding the courthouses and whether the people own them or not. And I was looking through Utah codes to find. I just did a search through the whole code to see if people were mentioned in the codes. And there was one code that said that mentioned the people, and it happened to be why they write the laws. And it says they write the laws for the benefit of the counties, the taxpayers, and the people. I don't believe people are supposed to be taxpayers.
You're absolutely right. They're not.
And it's even stated like that in our code. So maybe the taxpayers paid for the building, but the people aren't supposed to be those taxpayers. And so it's in a totally different jurisdiction than we, the people, if we step up and be who we are.
Yep, I would agree.
I yield. It was just food for thought.
Very much so. Thank you. I appreciate that.
If I may.
Hey.
Hi, this is Dave in the Thumb. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I do recall hearing about, the taxpayers were foreigners paying excise tax, being taxed to bring stuff in, and we didn't pay taxes in the beginning. They built this nation without an income tax.
Absolutely.
So, that's all I got for now.
That was good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I? I just want to make a comment.
You may.
I filed a miscellaneous file in 2012 at the federal court, and that was my status of affidavit, and they do give you a case number. I just wanted to make that notification.
You filed it in the court?
At the federal court, yes.
Okay.
And it's a small number. I think it's a different number than what they usually use for the cases.
Oh, interesting.
When I first tried to file, they said they would not accept affidavits, but that was my status of affidavit. It had it up still. And then I said I wanted to file at the miscellaneous file, and they said, "Oh, okay." And I think I have to pay $10 or $15 or something like that. Oh, because they give me a copy. That's why, I wanted to have a copy of the record.
Okay, real good. Thank you.
And I think maybe I can add something else in that file.
I'm sure you could. Over time, I'm sure you could add any number of things you needed. Yep.
That's great. Thank you. Adieu.
May I?
Thank you. You may.
I'm sure you can, ma'am. You can file anything you want in that. And I don't think they didn't give you a case number. They gave you a file number. So
you're right. They did give me a file number. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So that it would be it'd be like your safety deposit box. It has a number on it, so you know which one is yours.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, because it was a small number and it was stamped.
Yeah, and
Can you
then
hear me?
anything that you wanted to file in there and send copies to someone else, they would stamp that file number on it. If I'm
Yeah, can you
so
hear
in
me?
other words, the person that you served with this out of your own court of record could then go to that file number, and there it would be, along with, in other words, the legitimacy that it's Micky, isn't it, Micky?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. That Micky's talking about would be there, even though.
Were you saying that I can file a court of record there?
Yes, you could file your paperwork there.
Oh, great!
And get a file stamp on it. See? So you're not actually placing it in you're not asking for federal jurisdiction case. It's just I'm thinking that the only reason they would offer it is because they have to. I mean, your county or court or whatever doesn't offer you a place to put a miscellaneous. Well, I guess they do, though, don't they? Through the in a different way, through the Register of Deeds and things like that.
Yes, but the county recorders, they did not accept affidavits.
Yeah.
So, that's why, I went to the federal court.
Yeah. But this, in your file, your miscellaneous file, the federal court has no jurisdiction over it.
No, I guess
the
not.
black robe guys.
No, I don't.
No.
Robe chimpanzee.
I yield.
A question from Gary Don.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Judge Micky or anybody else. Is there a jury in the court of record?
In our court of record, there's no jury. This isn't a jury trial situation. It's a court of record is merely you're the court, you're the judge, you do the paperwork, and you give them a way to answer you back. And it's all done via paperwork. This is not this is not a jury trial situation. If you need that, you would have to go to the grand jury.
May I try with Gary?
You surely may.
Gary, see, when the way it's supposed to work, when you inform your opponent of what's going on and they don't respond, then under the maxim of silence is an admission, they're admitting to the accusation, and you don't need to have a jury or anything.
You become judge, jury, and executioner, if I may.
Well, then who enforces it?
Well, that's the problem.
In other words, if I'm out of order, you say so. But if you take me into this court of record, and I'm supposed to be the guilty party, and I don't agree, and I tell you I don't agree, and I don't even show up. I'll just write my paperwork that you have no jurisdiction over me as we the people. I don't accept you. I don't accept your jurisdiction. Now, where's the authority? Where do we go from there?
Because what's going to happen is you're going to be reading those papers from that man or that woman, and they are going to give you their reasons. And, generally speaking, what's going to happen is exactly what happened in Tadlock's case. There was a lawyer that came in and he put his paperwork in, and Tadlock and them got to deny his motion. Why? Because he is the lawyer coming in, and it's not a man coming in. So if I'm making a claim against another man or woman, then they have to refute it on paper. And if they refute it, we get to look at it and say yay or nay to it. It's our court of record. Now, in my opinion, if it's between a man and a woman, you know, or man to man, or woman to man, or however, if two people, I would not be opposed to having it go before a grand jury or even a petite jury. If we have a petite jury, we could have it go before that and have a decision made that way. But most of your court of record things are actually going to be handled in your court.
But supposing you find me guilty, and I just say I'm not going along with it. Period. I'm not going to do nothing. I'm going to play the devil's advocate for a minute. I'm not going to do anything. Now what do you do?
If I can.
Go ahead, Santa Claus. Good one.
Gary, that's in there lies what we now have discovered. Enforcement is nothing that we, the people, have the ability to do. We've been conquered by this fire mafia. You know.
If I may help you out there, Santa.
Sure, absolutely, Dave.
So what Gary's talking about is, say you and Gary have a dispute and you bring him into your court of record. So Gary, if you don't respond within the allotted time, you're guilty, okay? And the enforcement that Santa Claus has is a lien.
Absolutely.
I yield.
No, absolutely.
But sooner or later, it would come down to the community. That's where a kind of an assembly thing would be. Just imagine if there had never been any bar mop and none of this criminal court stuff, where the community would have to sanctify your accusations. The community would then say, okay, we're going to come in and throw you out of your home, Gary, because you're guilty of what you've been accused of. You haven't even responded to the complaint.
Well, I don't know if they would go that drastic, throw him out of his home, but they would
whatever it
have
took.
a remedy.
Yeah.
They would find a remedy for whatever the issue was.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's the dilemma that we're running into, is that now we're finding out how, I call it the reasonable man standard. There is such a thing as a reasonable man. That's how the system is supposed to work. But under the reasonable man standard, you wouldn't have a fiat money. And this fiat money is, it actually has been so accepted just due to that everyday people don't have the time to keep up with, like, what's his name? Thomas Jefferson pointed out that lawyers, by night and by day and by hook and by crook and in the dead of night and everything else, just sneak in. And like you said, Gary, originally the attorneys got into the United States through the churches.
I'm not suggesting for a moment that I would do something like that. I said I'll play the devil's advocate because I think sometimes we have up here in Othello, Michigan, a think tank, and we've had this for a number of years, where certain people get together and we pass these things back and forth. Now we have talked about not the court of records so much, but we've talked about what they're doing there. And one of the things we said, well, we have come to the understanding of talking to some judges, even some federal judges way out in Oregon years back, but these judges wear two hats in courts. Okay, and they can rule in common law if you can get them to hold your feet there. So therefore you have the justice system if it's working in common law, and then you have the United States Marshals, and they are paid. They take an oath to office to uphold the Constitution, all these good things. Well, do they wear two hats also? I have a good friend as a marshal, and we were in a case down in federal court about a big issue that was nationwide at one time. I don't want to go into that, but this marshal lady, she said, "Listen, I'm here to protect you. This is my duty today. Okay, you're a witness, and this is my job." And I become friends with the lady, and she said, they would respond to common law. They would respond. Everything set up, court set up, the jurisdiction, everything is set up for them. We just got to make sure they're in the right venue. So you understand that they don't trick people. So we're going to try to see if we can just run a case right from a grand jury here right into the federal court and let them disseminate how the hell it works. Just make sure it's common law.
Well, Gary, if I may, sometimes you just have to think like a tank and go in shoot.
Well, you're talking an old military guy. I understand what you're saying, Dave. Yeah, but anymore, you don't want to be running into their federal court and shooting. If you knew how secure these federal courts were, it'd scare you to death. Okay. When anybody thinks they're going to take a few people in, they're going to solve the problem, they will show you the door in a hurry. They got massive forces at those. I don't know how they afford it, but however they do. But that's beside the point.
They don't know how they afford it. They use our money.
Yeah.
They can afford anything.
Yeah. But Justice Micky, I really appreciate your having this program. It's very interesting. You're a great host.
Thank you very much. I just try to pass on what I've learned from others. And like I said, it was Judge Doucette's idea. So he's the one you need to thank. Because when he first mentioned it, I was like, What?
Judge Doucette's a good guy, okay?
Yes, he is a good guy. When he first asked me, I'm like, okay.
I'm gonna repeat something Will Rogers said. He said, Gary, it's what you think that just isn't so.
Isn't that true?
And just maybe, and I've had a lot of criticism thrown my way, but our think tanks thinking it out the best we can. Just maybe, if we can keep the judge and wearing the right hat and bring the thing together, we can get justice that way. Okay, that's positive. That'd be positive justice. If they would just act in common law like they should, we'd have perfect justice. I know there's no such a thing as perfect, but I'm talking about 99.9.
Yeah, I do.
And it makes sense to me. Go ahead. I yield.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What I was going to say is, I think the one thing I have problem with, I can't foresee them doing what they're supposed to do, putting on a common law hat, and I'll tell you why. Those are corporations. They are private corporations. They are not a government. If it was a true government and they had different hats that they could wear, I could agree with all of this. But I have looked these things up. These courts are all corporations. They're not the government.
If I may.
Hey, Santa Claus.
Yeah. Because you see, Gary, if they wouldn't be able to issue traffic tickets.
Right.
They wouldn't be, they wouldn't be able to have the power, and these people are sadistic parasites.
Mm-hmm.
In Michigan, Gary, I found that in Michigan, a judge only has to sit on the bench one day to draw full retirement. And yet they still will. If you could draw full retirement and only have to show up for work one day, they'd be employing a lot of people because you'd show up for work one day and retire. But these judges are so into the power that they have and of the sadistic power that they'll be on the bench for 25 years when they could have retired, after one day on the bench. So they're just not of that character. And a lot of I yield.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's a lot of it. And see, if they were a real court, we should be able to go into common law at any point in time. But because they are a corporation, why do you think these judges always say, this is my court, my court, my court? That's because they're a corporation, and that's his job in that room in his corporation. If they were really of the people, by the people, for the people, you would not see what's happening to the people, whether it's traffic tickets, whether it's people in jail for quote unquote IRS problems. None of that would be going on if they were truly our courts. They're not. They're private corporations. We can't expect them to give us justice when they are a corporation. And that's just the way I see it.
Well, I say it's more than just first of all, this corporation thing is a ruse. It's a fraud that they have, like we now know, they use this fraudulent document that they created called a birth certificate, and then create an entity from the birth certificate in your name and lead you to believe that you're that entity, that dead, lost at sea entity or whatever. They all know that. They're not ignorant of what's going on. So.
Yep. Agreed.
You wouldn't need a prosecutor. Like you say, in common law, you don't have to have a prosecutor.
If I may.
Hey.
I remember a line from a movie. It says goes something like this: "Justice is not something that you're given, just something you dish out." And I yield.
Good, Paul.
That's good.
That's good.
May I?
You may.
A regular person who walk into the courtroom has no idea about what you are talking about that the court is a corporation, about the money. A regular person does not know anything.
Right.
Does not know anything, but a regular person, if he has just some brain, when the judge said, this is my courtroom, may respond and put a judge, whoever he is, on the spot and win the case. You don't really need to know. People don't know. How many people in the United States are aware that everything is fraud, scam, and everything is a corporation, and nobody knows what's going on? How many people?
That's true. There's not a lot.
I think most people don't care because they're so dumbed down, they're too busy trying to eke out a living, and then trying to entertain themselves. That's what it's all about. They don't care.
Yeah, they're not, if I may. They're not sadistic. The everyday people aren't sadistic, so they're not. When they are their lives, like you're saying, Dave, that they're just trying to live, and then they went to this make me stupid school, and where the people that these attorneys, they're parasites. They're sadistic parasites. Their only excuse for what they're doing could be that they're criminally insane.
Not exactly.
Not exactly?
This is James from the other end of Ohio, and I would...
What would be their excuse, James, for committing these crimes? That they're just hopeful criminals?
Well, I've worked over a dozen chemical plant shops. I'm telling you that when you have people come on the plant site, if you know they're from another plant of similar experience and they're capable, they may be trustworthy. But you have two situations. You have people who are malicious and vicious and trying to hurt somebody, and then you have others who are just plain ignorant or they're unwilling to pay attention when you hold a safety meeting. And the latter are probably the most dangerous category because they don't know what the hell's going on and they don't care. It's very difficult. You'll find those people on the street walking next to you day after day. I'd like to mention something you were mentioning earlier about a security deposit box in a bank. They're not banks anymore after the Monetary Control Act of 1980. They're only financial, operations that have been created. You look at your own currency, the bill doesn't say on the seal anymore, BANK, it says Federal Reserve System. You've been systematized. You've been dumbed down to accept the financial pattern that's, basically fraud, not in keeping with Article 1, Section 10, most assuredly. And on the signature card that I signed probably 1986 or a long time ago in another county down here, the contract was on the signature card right above where they wanted me to put my John Henry Q. Whatever. It said, I agree to abide by all the rules and regulations of the bank, period. Good God, they're not going to change the rules in the middle of the game and let me suffer the consequences. So I put another statement on that before I signed it with only two initials and last name, and I'll explain the reason for that. Once again, I repeat the contract. I agree to abide by all the rules and regulations of the bank, period. The next statement I put on there was, but this statement shall mean no waiver of any constitutionally secured rights or natural immunity for the owners of account, period. And that's just a makeshift explanation of I don't agree with the contract and I don't want to be obliged by it, but I want to do business in order to survive in a fraudulent money system, which I've been doing. And I still have the account, and it's in good standing as far as I know. I would even have some deposit to mail in, and I wouldn't put it in the postage system to send it there because I don't want to be accused of any kind of mail fraud. I'm trying to say some of the artful dodging that goes on in the society, even on the conference calls, everybody listening should eventually figure out the old scam of the cop-out. You know what it means to cop-out, where that comes from in the situation? Typically, some poor guy or maybe a couple or whatever have too much to drink or they've been speeding, whatever, that they're thrown in jail, maybe drunk and disabled a little bit by the cops on Friday night. They don't care much until they sober up what the hell's going on, but eventually they're bringing in the fights and the people in the street and the women of the night on the Saturday, and they'll run out of jail pretty badly, even though they've already signed up on the signature. They're going to go to class and, go to court on Monday and have their case in front of a judge. Cop-out means C-O-P. That stands for change of plea. And finally, the jailers and the people harass them enough, say, yeah, you can get out of here. All you can do is sign the signature here. And they check off the blank, change of plea, they plead guilty, pay their fine, they actually go back to work on Monday, and they have a job. But they've already created a rap sheet for themselves by submitting to the crooked nature of the court system. And once again, it's another reason for not having a security box in a so-called bank, because they're not banks. And they put that kind of nonsense into play, as I explained from the signature card. Now, the reason for only two initials and last name on an account, that's what appears on a check blank. And you don't want that information, even, say, 1955 or a long time ago. You don't want that information collected as a dossier or a record of your transactions. You don't want anything but two initials, last name, or the most simple thing you can put on a checking account. That is the aiding and abetting of this information system by OSS and then later CIA. Excuse me, I have a little bit of cough. In the 1950s, the Eastman Kodak Company was processing the microfilm and all the surveillance and aerial photographing in World War II. They were a huge partner. They even processed the Zapruder film, if you want to remember that, in which they had an 8mm film that came out with 16mm when they released it back in 1963. Or maybe it was 1964. 64, you remember, they released the Warren Report to LBJ. Whoop-ee. Last one to adulterate it was Gerald Ford president. Later, he was president. But Gerald Ford, and the oldest man on the Warrant Commission, was John J. McCloy. He signed the transmittal letter last. You can find it really readily on Wikipedia now, and you can print out a copy of their signatures. And that transmittal, I think, is around September 1964 to LBJ. But this is some of the history I've experienced and some of the dodging I've done for the system as we experience it. Currently, I'm thrown off a campus over here by a black woman who thinks she's the dean of student success or some dumbass thing like that. She throws the paper in front of me on the table that said I'm supposed to sign so I have access to the campus. Well, she's obliging me in that damn contract to leave 15 minutes early before closing time. That's taking away from me something that everybody else enjoys as a regular student. There's a maximum law, if you want to remember it. You're not obliged to sacrifice one right in order to enjoy another right. That's a maximum of common law. And that's probably enough of me rattling on, but I'll give you a little bit of fresh ideas with what I've had to say here. And I find you people very agreeable in your curiosity and what you're trying to reason with tonight. God bless you one and all, and I yield.
Thank you very much. That's definitely food for thought. And it's very interesting, you know, the whole banking situation. I would agree with what you said.
May I?
You may.
I don't think anybody, James, was confused about when I said you go into a bank and your safety deposit box. I don't think anybody was confused at that. But what I was saying is that I'll ask you, are you of the opinion that more than 90% of the black robe, what we call judges, are unaware, are ignorant of the law that they're fraudulently representing? Is that what you're saying?
I'm trying to say that they're confused, and they may not now or in the future very quickly recognize the confusion to which they're obliged to behave. And I mean, once again, it's mind control. And I'm saying you have an enormous problem with drugs, and they make their profits out of that ugly business too. But to throw somebody in jail for just possession of something, no matter what kind of drug it is, that's not a crime. If you put these people on a witness stand and try to have some logic with the jury may be stupid enough to think that the law is whatever somebody says is the law. No way. It has to be true by manifestation, not merely by proclamation. Your victim in a crime has to have some demonstrable damage to life, liberty, or property. Those are the three things necessary for your happiness. Try to use any two of those features, life, liberty, and property, and you have any one of them missing. The other two don't amount to very much. Well, when there's damage to life, liberty, or property, you can go through the tort or the claim and go to the so-called court. A court, definition of a court: the suit of the sovereign, the power expressed by the people who are running some authoritative measure to bring order, peace, mercy, justice to a society. When you're doing that, well and good. Ever and always, what you're doing as a conscientious member of society is trying to determine what are you creating with what you're about to do. That's what real conscience is all about. But when somebody suffered a damage and you find out that somebody's doing it by willful, malicious intent, that's considered a common law crime. And all offenses against all this, statute, ordinance, code, offenses are punishable perhaps for the people who are contracted to be public servants, but we're not supposed to have a distinction between common law crime and offenses by the educational system was broken down entirely. And Santa, you maybe paid attention to the woman from Michigan, the billionaire, who's now proposed to be the cabinet member for Department of Education. That's a very interesting matter. I've been listening to the broadcast each morning on NPR as she plays out her opinion. She's trying to support charter schools and some degree of freedom for the people and the parents involved. And most of them are pretty much obliged to use public school. And she's gaining a whole lot of criticism from the people running this public school system. So I'll just leave it at that and say I yield. There's a lot of controversy coming into play, and the people at large discussing and doing what they're talking about. I yield.
Good discussion tonight. Kind of got a little bit off topic, but that's okay. Sometimes that happens, and we all learned a lot tonight. If we hadn't jumped off topic several times, we wouldn't have learned the information. But it is getting to be a little bit late. So with that, does anybody have any more questions regarding the court of record for tonight or counterclaim?
Well, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
How many people, I don't know how we would think that the judges are confused?
I think that's pretty much everybody on this call.
I don't think the judges are confused. I think that because I've spent some time communicating with them myself, and they're not confused. They know exactly what they're doing.
Well, maybe you're right. I guess that's probably a true statement. They're not really confused. I suppose that's probably, that's true. I see what you're saying. They technically
I think
do
they're
know
very good actors.
Yes.
That's probably
they may
true.
not be confused, but they sure are a bunch of dumbasses.
But they know what they're doing.
That's why I say their only excuse could be, now I'm saying it could be they're criminally insane. And that's
liability.
That's
they
how
can
we
tell
got.
that to the hangman when they're standing on the gallows.
That's going to be hard to enforce.
It'll come. It'll take time, but it'll come.
Is Gary
Too
Dunn
many people
still on the
know
call?
Is who?
Is Gary Dunn up in Michigan still on the call?
Gary Don's here, yes.
Okay. Have you been on the drug web page? That is, the first one would be http://drugawareness.org. But if you'll go to another one, which is also about the antidepressants, the so-called SSRI materials, that's selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And I could even talk about the woman and people who developed that over Johns Hopkins years ago. But there's another web page. They call it www. If you wish, ssristories.com. You'll find a section of, I don't know, hundreds of cases probably of the veterans and how they've been affected by these drugs. And I'm saying all the murders and divorces and criminal behavior that attributed to people is based on people behaving in a manner they have no control over their own mentality. If the dose on some of those drugs goes above, say, 200 milligrams, they have to be eased off very carefully. If they're taken off the drugs very rapidly, and somebody who's an MD or prescriber and he doesn't know any better and he does that, he's creating one hell of a circumstance and maybe an insanity that Santa should take a better look at. With, once again, ssristories.com. I yield.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you. You're so right about the drugs, and it's terrible what they have done to our veterans in the hospital with the drug system. It just when you get to visit there, or you'll be like I was in Ford Hospital for a while for a situation, and they brought a vet in from the Veterans Hospital. He was just absolutely covered with boils and all kinds of silly things. And he got shots, I think, 3 or 4 times a day, just to keep him in line, because he was, sedated at the other place. They wouldn't feel anything. And these things are so sad it makes you want to cry. But it doesn't seem like we can do anything about pharmacol. Okay, just the way it is. But I thank you for that.
No, it's not just the way it is. It's the way they want us to think it is, but I think we can do something about that as well.
Well, I hope to agree with you on that, David, but I just, using a summation of where the people are really at,
all I can say is the people that want it, let them have it, but the rest of us, we shouldn't be forced, to take shots or drugs or any of that crap. But for the SSRI stories, there's also another movie called Making a Killing. I can't remember the subtitle, but it's about the psychiatric community making a killing. Literally, they make a killing financially, and they make a killing by putting those people on those drugs that cause them to kill people.
If I may cut in here, I'm not trying to be rude, but Justice Micky, I think, is trying to end the call. If you guys swap numbers, you guys can talk about this. let's turn it
We
back
all
over
got
to her.
each other's numbers.
Okay. All right, Justice
Thank
Micky, back in your hands.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you helping me out. So everybody, one last time, how about it? Do we have any questions just on court of record stuff? Otherwise, we're going to call it a night. Countdown. 3, 2.
May I?
You may.
It's not. I just want to ask Dave to give me a call. Dave, give me a call, would you? That's it. As long as he's here on the call.
Good night,
Okay.
Judge Mickey.
Good night, everybody. 3, 2, 1.
Good night.
Good night.
Mickey.
Have a
Thank you.
safe,
We'll see you
buddy.
next week.
Good night, everybody.